Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Today is Saturday. It is a actually pretty fun Saturday. It's supposed to be like half rainy, so excellent time to be in the sewing room. It's going to be a good day. I had some weird dreams last night, but every time that I woke up, I'm like, that's a little weird. And then I would go back to sleep and it would continue. So, not certain what that means, but it is what it is. And it's going to be, a good day no matter what. In the chat this morning, we have my friend Steven of The Idiot Quilter who says he's number one. My favorite quote is, just remember, you have to be odd to be number one. And supposedly Dr. Seuss said that. I don't know if that part's true, but it's a great quote. Then we have our friend Julie, who says, hello, Steven and friends. And then Dubraka says that she's going to take seat number 3. So, good morning, Dubraka. We have Kathy in here. Good morning, Kathy. Candace. Hi, Candace. So, Candace, I just want to let you know I'm drinking the inferior product today. When I went this morning to get my bevy, the Pepsi thing was like shooting all over the place as if the fountainhead thingy was not installed correctly. And then I tried Coke Zero because that's my second favorite, and that was doing the fizzy thing as well. I'm like, did you guys not work the machine right? So yeah, I'm stuck with Coke today, and yeah, I don't like Coke. Excuse me. Good morning, Colleen. How are you this morning? We have Patricia in here as well. Good morning. And then we have Living and Crafting with MS. Good morning. And Jeannie E. Candace says, it's a sign Coca-Cola is the best. Don't fight fate. Like I said before, there's something fundamentally wrong with a product that you have to put Jack or rum in to make it taste good. I mean, I had to put 5 shots of vanilla in this thing just to give it, not a nasty flavor. So, yeah. So what are we working on today? We are working on the other half of the star units. So this is star unit. Okay. I'm special. The way the pattern is written, you're just making all of them the exact same way. But I am making these slightly different, and there is a reason. And I will show you that reason when we get one of these fully made. And then you're going to be like, Russ, you're special. And like I said, I get it. I understand I'm going to be special with this one. But it works in my brain. So let's see. How do I get... Okay, that's the button that I need to press to move over. So let's quickly get one of these made. Everything visually looks exactly the same as last week. And after we sew these units together, we're pressing them exactly the same. But I promise you there's a big difference. But all I'm doing, I'm just lining up. And I'm just going to start with a pair of them just so I can get the difference shown. Because I know that's what everybody is at the edge of their feet for. Or edge of their seat. That's the word. They want to know, Russ, what is so incredibly different about the other half? Good morning, Sue, and good morning, Katie Crafts. How are y'all doing? And I'll just do all four. So yesterday, I was on my phone. It had just done a software update, as it does every now and then. And I was looking at things, and a new feature popped up. And I was like, huh, what is this? Apparently, I can take photos that I have taken, usually of people or animals, and it will kind of redraw the picture in a certain style. So it's got various different styles. I think it's got like 4, maybe 5 different styles that you can do. And it kind of just basically turns it into a cartoon picture. So I took a picture of Riley, and I ran it through the filter, and I was like, that's not exactly Riley, but it's really cute. So I shared the original and the remixed picture in the family chat, and my sister goes, yeah, that's not Riley. And I was like, yeah, I know. And it's mostly because the picture was taken right after daycare, and Riley's ears are usually down after daycare. I then found another picture where her ears are up, and I did the same thing, and oh my goodness, that thing is so cute. And I will be sharing the pictures of that in my weekly vlog. But my family chat was like, that's Riley. So, yeah. Good morning, Cynthia, who says, good morning, Russ. Glad to see me. Still recuperating from shoulder replacement surgery. That doesn't sound like that was a fun surgery. I hope you are doing well with that. Shoulders are very important. I'll just get these 2 done. So again, I pressed towards the square. Good morning, Jen. How are you? And I am going to run this one through the machine. Exactly like last week. And after we press it, again, I'm pressing in the direction of the square. after we press it, we get something that looks... Let me grab one that's not the same fabrics. Suspiciously like last week's. So they look, like if I put it this way, they look identical. This is how they will go, and the way that they're pressed, they will all nest. But the difference is the way I pressed the half square triangles. In last week's block, I pressed the fabric line fabric towards the fabric line and the accent towards the white. And in this one, I'm pressing the fabric line fabrics towards the white and the accent towards the accent. And that allows, when we do these two, when they are lined up how they are supposed to be, it means these are all going to be nesting really nicely together, no matter which way we have it. So whether it's that one or this one, it nests about as well you can get them to nest. And that's just going to make the seams be just barely that much flatter. So that is why I'm calling these Unit 1 and Unit 2, Unit A, Unit B, Unit X, Unit Y. Don't know. But it just helps the seams lie just a little bit flatter. If they were all pointing in the same directions, you'd get a little bit of extra bulk, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just means you have to kind of hammer it down just a little bit more in order to get it flat. So I have one done. I have a second one done, and I am just going to go through just like I did last week. And I've got a pile of them. Going to make sure that they are all lining up how I expect. And I'm going to run them through my machine as we chit chat. I don't have all of them cut still. I've still got about, I think it's 6 or 7 more strip tubes to cut. I was just really exhausted this week and did not get a lot of time in my sewing room. I did get all of last week's sewn. They're in a giant pile over here. You can see a couple of them in today's thumbnail because I was like, I could only use the thumbnail picture of my sister and her bestie so many times before people are like, this is getting boring with a thumbnail picture. So I was able to show how the star units are going to go together. Good morning, Jackie. How are you today? I have been up since just before 8, as long as we exclude the, couple times I had to get up because my bladder demanded it. I watched Steven over on our friend Sean, the guy who sews channel. They seem to have a blast this morning together. It was fun to watch. And then I grabbed some breakfast, and I've been in here getting ready for things. I was very excited on Thursday evening. It's the silliest thing that excites me. Last year, I bought a document scanner because there's a lot of stuff, especially related to like my car's maintenance records and stuff like that, vet maintenance records, that I'm like, I want these scanned and then organize. So I bought a scanner, and the scanner seems to only work, well, I set it up to work with my phone, which meant it's not very useful because if I had to turn on my phone, connect the scanner, all that other stuff, I'm not going to use it as often as I need to. And Thursday, I opened up, like my Google feed will pop up and say, these are the articles that I think that you're interested in. And I do a lot of home lab stuff. So basically, there's a lot of stuff out there that exists as apps. Things like, your productivity suite, your Google Drive, or OneDrive from Microsoft, or whatever the Apple version is. Or you can have your music collections or your TV and stuff. So they have apps out there that if you have your own content or stuff like that, you can do that. Or they even have, like, instead of using financial suite software, like what used to be mint.com, they have other stuff that you host yourself. It mostly just helps keep your private data private. And there was a article in there, and every time I read them, I'm like, it's got the exact same apps in there all the time. And I just happened to read it. And they had one that said, for document management, do this. And I was like, that's actually kind of what I'm looking for, so I don't have to do all of this extra work. And I was looking at it, I'm like, what do you mean my scanner is supported and it has these features? So I started looking at the scanner, and it now has the ability to scan directly to a shared drive and not have to have your phone connected. You don't have to have a Windows computer connected or an Apple computer connected. It does everything just with the push of a button. And I was like, that's exactly what I wanted this to do a year ago when I bought it. So I upgraded the system on the scanner, and that now works. I was able to put something in the scanner, and it went directly to my network drive. And I'm like, okay, now I got to get this other software working, but I can't do that until I have a little bit of time off. So that's probably going to be part of my Labor Day weekend projects, unless I get bored today or tomorrow. So that was just a long-winded version of saying I'm excited that a feature finally showed up on a printer that I bought because I wanted the printer to do that feature. I was eventually going to end up trying to make a just a computer on its own that its only job was to run the scanner. But I didn't have the resources and stuff to do that yet. So I was like, what am I going to do? I basically bought a scanner for nothing. Jackie says she's getting ready for the invasion of her granddaughters this morning. Ooh. Some invasions can be fun. Others not so much. I think I did the math, and I'm like 6 weeks away from the invasion of my sister and cousin. I am very excited about that. Let me make sure my math is right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, 6 weeks. So I think that's going to be exciting. since, I haven't seen either of them since May. But my sister hasn't come down here since like 2009, I think it was. And that's just basically because she's been busy with all kinds of other shenanigans, and the fact that she had younger kids, so she couldn't leave her kids alone and all that stuff. Well, she could. It's just, government agencies probably wouldn't have appreciated it. And then my cousin has never been down here to visit, so I'm excited that we will get to have them visit. We already have dinner plans for the Friday night that they arrive. And then Saturday is going to be a concert, so don't know what we're doing for meals on Saturday yet, but and then they have to leave me on Sunday because, again, work commitments and all that other stuff. It's not like they can come down for a week, because apparently I get a little bit more PTO than they do. So I was able to go up there for a week and a half, but they can only come down here for the weekend. And I know a lot of it is just basically, a lot of it is the time of year for my sister. Good morning, Joydy, who says, good morning, Russ ampersand chatters. And then she goes off and lists a whole bunch of our friends. Hey, Joydy. Okay, apparently I didn't cut as many as I thought that I had cut. Because I know last week I barely made it through the first pass of these. And I don't think I fully made it through the first pass of these while I was live with y'all. And then I've got this pile and I've got one more pile left before I got to start sewing them together. Well, press, then sew, because you got to press, then sew. It's just today I don't have the luxury of a pop-up sew day right after to keep my motivation moving on these. Steven, you need to do pop-up sew days every Saturday. Yeah, that's it. No, not really. I understand. That's what Wednesdays are for. And besides, Steven, if you did pop-up sew days every Saturday, I would have zero audience because just about everybody would be sitting in your pop-up sew day. Good morning, Charlotte, who says, good morning, everyone. How are you today, Charlotte? And I did look at the calendar. August is one of those that has, 5 Sundays. Because I was like, aren't we approaching Kona Block of the Month Sunday? And the answer is no. That is in a week and a day. So I know that's Labor Day weekend. I do not know what my sewing guests usually are doing on Labor Day weekend. So we don't know if they will be able to join or not yet. Hopefully I will have some more details sooner than later. But that's one of those, I will be sending them the link sometime in the next week to say, hope to see you Sunday. The following Sunday, not tomorrow. I just know when I picked up the block, they were like, yeah, you got to do a lot of high square triangles in this one. Which I keep trying to remember to cut the rest of the squares that I'm going to need for the rest of the year. Because that would be one less thing that I need to do in prep for these things. But honestly, cutting takes the least amount of time with these. It's the sewing of the half square triangles and then trimming the half square triangles that takes the most with the Kona Block of the Month. And then before I finish with these, I'm just reminding everybody how I have organized myself. And this is just because I want to make sure I can focus more time on you than working on organization. I put things in piles in the same direction so that all I have to do is remember to grab one from the top, then one from the bottom, one from the top, one from the bottom. And I put them in smaller piles. That way I more easily remember one from the top, one from the bottom, because I can see the piles getting smaller visually. Whereas if I had them in giant piles, I wouldn't necessarily see them. It really doesn't matter if you did all your tops and all your bottoms first and second, but it makes it easier to pull them off in pairs if you remember to do the top and bottom like I am doing. And I will show you that in a second once I get this last one sewn. Because now all I have to do is pull them off by twos, and I'm just cutting 2 by 2. And they will all be paired up properly together. Charlotte says she just got off of an hour-long Zoom sewing with her sister. That sounds exciting. If my sister sewed, I think I would enjoy doing hour Zooms with her. She crochets, and I don't know if that would be as exciting, just, trying to chit chat. I mean, that's really what we're doing when we're on Zooms anyway with our family while we're sewing, is we're chit chatting with each other. But she crochets anywhere, so she will be sitting in her living room most of the time crocheting, but she can crochet in the past while she was watching her husband play softball, or while the kids were at this event, or while the kids were at that event. There was just a whole bunch of places that she can just be sitting there crocheting, and she entertained herself. So I don't know how much she would appreciate me saying, hey, would you like to do a we would just call it a crafty zoom. Although she would probably appreciate it. But then after like 5 minutes, we'd be like, okay, we talk all the time. I don't know why we're just sitting here. Good morning, Brian, who says, hi, Russ and everyone. So I have my pile of halves here. So I'm going to press and sew in groups just so that I have them all together. This was the one that I had sewn at the beginning. And then I have the other two matchings that I got to press through. That one and this one. When I was doing the blocks last week, all I did was I just spent however many minutes over on this side doing all the pressing. Just because pressing was a easy thing to do en masse, all at the same time. And because they are still linked, I know that that's the side that goes underneath the presser foot. So I can just line up the two edges and sew them through. And then most of the time, when I'm sewing what's already stitched together, I will, once I get the stitching started, I will cut this thread. But because I am not twisting the seams open, I do not need to cut the thread. And the reason why I'm not twisting the seams open is because if I did, I would have one side that is going one direction, one side that's going the other direction when I did the 4-patch together, when I did or make it into the 16 patch. And when I do that, then they don't line up with the 9 patches that are already done. So I am pressing to one side instead of splitting open. And I went through the pressing instructions in the pattern, and she presses differently, so she doesn't get full I say she. It could be a he that did this design. No, it's a she, Daniela. So you get mostly nesting, but you don't get a full nest with their pressing instructions. So you don't always have to follow instructions to the T. Usually it's better. Usually. But sometimes you find a way just to do a slightly different press. And, every now and then I'm like, I wonder if I should just, send them a note and let them do a pattern correction. But that sounds too much like work. So I mentioned as we started the stream that I had a strange dream. Good morning, Sherry. How are you today? My strange dream was, and it makes no sense because my dreams never make any sense. But for all I know, maybe there's somebody like Joseph who has an amazing Technicolor dream code who can analyze dreams and figure out what they mean. But I was on the cruise. So basically my dream had me fast forward to October. And I was leaving my stateroom. And we got on the elevator. And I was trying to go to deck 3. Because I know deck 3 is where our sewing space is going to be. And there was no elevator button for deck 3. In fact, there was only 15G and whatever floor I was on. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. So I ended up hitting G for whatever reason. And next thing I know, we are at somebody's house decorating them a Halloween tree. Like a Christmas tree, but for Halloween. And I don't know how long I was doing this in my dream phase, but I was like, wait, why are we on land? And I guess whatever elevator I got on, they were like, that's what this excursion is. And I'm like, but I didn't want to decorate for Halloween. I mean, I know it's an awesome holiday, but I didn't want to. So somehow they got me back to the ship. And then Riley is with me, and I'm walking her around the ship. And we walk into CVS on the ship, which that made no sense. And she's happy because she gets to see other puppies. And I'm like, yes, there's all these puppies. And let me tell you, the CVS on the ship in my brain had packed checkout lines like if you were in Costco. And it was a small store again in my. I was like, none of this makes sense, but I'm obviously dreaming, so whatever. And I was looking for sunscreen because that song from the '90s that said "Wear sunscreen." And I went to customer service manager, and it was her name was Brandy with an I, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense because nobody named Brandy with a Y. And she's like, yeah, we don't carry sunscreen here. Our manager doesn't like it. You have to go out onto land and go 2 blocks east. And I'm like, again, why? So, yeah, I had messed up dreams. I do know that I need basically good sunscreen that is essentially like reef safe sunscreen, just to make sure that nothing is environmentally damaging with what I buy. But again, I have like 50 days to come up with all this stuff. But I guess that means I'm just really excited to go on this cruise. Jody says, "Oh wow, that is so cool. You remember so much of my dream. Write it all down to see if any of it resonates with your cruise." Yeah, I don't know if there's any need to write it down because I basically just said the entire dream. I'm like, let's see how it comes out. But most of the time I remember like I remember a handful of details in my dreams. But those details fade very quickly. So I will like wake up and I'll be like, that was a weird dream. And by the time I get to the shower, I have already forgotten most of the dream. And this was another, like, I knew I was going to end up remembering it because I woke up like 4 times in the middle of the dream. In fact, one of them was at 3 a.m. because my bladder was like, hey, I want to go. And I asked my speaker what time it was, and it said that it was 3 a.m. And apparently, I didn't manage to get out of bed. I fell back asleep, and then when I woke up again, it was 5:30. And I was like, I need to actually go this time because my bladder is starting to yell at me. I've had people say, so Russ, what gets you out of bed in the morning? And I'm like, my bladder. Charlotte says that's a wild dream, and Candace goes, crazy dream. I mean, do we expect anything less from me? Brian says he had a dream once that he got lost in a stairwell. I mean, the choices are up or down, but somehow got lost. Yeah. When I moved to Massachusetts, it was right as I was starting my junior year of high school. It was the first school that I had been in that had multiple floors. Our school in South Carolina was a single floor. It was basically the first one with floors. And the only thing that I remember is it was happening actually in that school. And I would have these dreams well after I graduated high school. But I remember, going down the stairs, but basically leaping down the entire half flight. So doing it in one, almost like flying down the stairs. And every time that I would do that, I was like, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. I must be dreaming. If only I had the ability to properly lucid dream and decide what I am doing or what new things will pop up in my dreams with that. But I don't have that quite thing. Stephen says this time of year when he was teaching, so basically as school was starting or before school was starting, he would have dreams that he was in front of his class with nothing on. But nobody realized it, so he kept teaching. I haven't had... I mean, I know that's one of those typical dreams where like either you're taking an exam and you're in your birthday suit or something else is going on and you're in your... I've never had I'm somewhere important and I'm not wearing the appropriate clothing dream. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I have had several dreams that I was back waiting tables at Waffle House. And every time I wake up, I'm like, that was confusing because it's been so long since I waited tables. The dreams are supposed to mean that you are feeling vulnerable. Becky asked, have I ever woke up in the middle of a dream and made myself go back to sleep so I could finish it? That's actually what happened last night. I think I said a couple minutes ago. I woke up in the middle of the dream and fell back asleep and was continuing it. I've tried to do that with other dreams, which involve family members that are no longer with us. And those never work with the getting back to sleep. But apparently the more wild the dream is, the more apt I am to continue it after falling back asleep. As long as I don't physically get out of bed. The moment I get out of bed and my mind is now focused on something else, the chances of me continuing are next to nothing. So my 3 a.m., I have to go to the bathroom, and I went back to sleep. But somehow I managed to show back up in my dream after my 5 a.m. potty break. So sometimes it does work. Most of the time, no. I will say my favorite dreams that I end up having are the ones where Bradley, the corgi I used to have, or when Jesse, the kitty I had that passed 2 years ago, when they come to visit me in my dreams. And those are the ones like, if I can go back to sleep, can I just spend a few more minutes with them? When my sister was looking at adopting a new dog, the night after she met the dog, she had a dream that her previous dog came and said, that's who you need to have as your next dog. And it all worked out, and she got her Stella May at that. But she basically had that dream that Max came in and said, yes, it's okay. She will be with you like I will be with you. It looks like I'm going to get the half that I have cut sewn with you guys. And I'm sure everybody remembers from my vlog Riley's attempted playing with the deer in the backyard. And by attempted, it would have been a really bad event if, you know, the deer actually got that close to her. I was surprised to see the deer, and the main reason was because I have a fenced-in backyard. It's not like Steven's bats who can just, you know, fly in. And Riley is sad because the neighbors have officially moved away, which meant her bestie also moved away. And they left Thursday morning. They packed up everything on Wednesday. They left Thursday. And I sent them animated GIF saying, "You abandoned me." It was basically Stitch from Lilo and Stitch in the rain, and it said, "You abandoned me." And she and her husband said, "Oh, we'll be back." And I just responded back with the animated GIF from Hamilton of King George singing, "You'll be back." La da 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 da. Nobody ever said I can sing. And then I know I have over here. Where's the one that I am missing? There it is. Because I knew I had one more still on here as I grabbed the last pieces. They're saying they will be back for a couple days in a couple weeks. I don't know if they're bringing Lulu. I don't know if they left a bed behind so they have a place to stay or what they're doing. Because they have 2 cars and they brought a... That was strange. They got a U-Haul. So they had both cars full, or one car full, I guess, and the U-Haul. And I was like, well, who's driving the U-Haul if you got both of your cars? And they're like, oh, we're coming back in a couple weeks. So one of the cars, I guess, is left behind. Charlotte says the deer was gorgeous. The deer definitely was. His antlers were in velvet. Yeah. I don't know if I had seen an antler still in velvet. A deer antler still in velvet before. It definitely was very cool. Normally when I see deer, they are in the front yard playing where they don't have to bound any fences. Good morning, John of Guys Craft 2. How are you doing this morning? John has a Labor Day quilting bee coming up in a week and a couple days. where he will be working on a Villa Rosa fall pattern. I think it was called like Falling Leaves or something like that. I will probably be working on putting together the center of the quilt, if not putting together the rest of this quilt. Because my current plan is to take what I have done this weekend and sometime during the week organize them into 4 patches of different colorifications. And then next week for my live, my plan is to sew those 4 patches together. And when I have all the 4 patches sewn together, that means I will have all the blocks done, all 56 blocks. Which means it's just layout and sew. And I haven't decided if I want to do the sewing of the blocks on my channel or if I'm going to do those offline. And we all know the borders are offline because Russ can't handle the pressure of borders on a live. So I'm just, it depends on how much extra time I get this week in order to get them put together. But I know between today and tomorrow I should be able to get the rest of these cut up. Cut out and sewn up, which will mean I have basically everything done. With the blocks, and then when everything is done with the blocks, that means putting it all together. And we all know laying out the blocks in the correct order, in a pleasing order, is the hardest thing to do. It's everybody just stresses and lays out on it like, okay, how do I make sure that everything looks good? How do I make sure it all looks great? It's basically going to be me taking the largest area of floor that I have and say, okay, I need to lay them out, get them in the correct order, pile them up into my rows and columns. And then when I have them all piled, I will know which side is left, which side is right. And then I can just push them through the machine like I have done on other projects. Good morning, Melanie, who says, hi, Russ and chatters. How are you doing this morning? Melanie, I apologize. You picked up at the very end of the session. I have now, like I said, I've got half of my block sewn. I got to get the other half cut out and sewn. And this is just basically telling me it's going to take me an hour to finish cutting out or finish sewing the other half. And I think it's going to take me an hour and a half to cut it all out. So I got 2.5 hours of this session or this type of block done, and then getting the rest of the pressing done. And like I said, lay them all out into the 4 patches. So next week we will be doing 4 patches. And next week is a long weekend. I haven't decided if I'm going to do anything extra for the long weekend yet. Well, we will see. But I will probably have more details come Wednesday as to what my plans for the long weekend are going to be. Happy Saturday, everyone. Make sure you give all of the folks that are live on YouTube lots of love. Just, give them all the likes that you can. Subscribe to everybody that you want. And, anybody who wants to go catch the replay that came in late, you could actually just start over the video and say, I can watch the first 10 minutes that I missed. You can do whatever you want. So hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Toodles!